What's up? Hey, hello, everyone. Wow, so we are back going to be talking about Survivor on this beautiful off season. And look at the backgrounds. Alyssa and I are both at home this week, which is super, super crazy. So we don't have to deal with time zone differences or anything like that. So my name is Rachel.
And I'm Alyssa, and this week we're going to be doing our Bootlist comparison. So before the season started, we both came up with a boot list that was like what we thought the order of people going home would be. And now that the season is over, we can see how right or wrong we were. And spoiler alert for this entire thing, I was really, really, really wrong. So Rachel and I were like talking about a way to do this, and so I guess what we're going to do is we're going to say who we each put in last place and then who actually came in last place, and then like comments, I guess, about how we messed up so bad.
Oh, it wasn't that bad, I feel like. I feel like Alyssa and I sort of had the right general idea of how the season would turn out, but like the people weren't in the exact right order, obviously, because before the Bootlist challenge, we didn't look at any spoilers or anything like that. So it was 100% what we thought would happen this season. And I think we were solid. I think if the season didn't have so many twists or weird advantages, yeah, that's the right word, then the season could have turned out this way. I feel like for me personally, my boot list, it was sort of flipped. I had people like Malcolm and JT going really far into the game, and then they were voted out really early, and then still sad about that because of twists and advantages and stuff like that. They went home, maybe earlier than they could have gotten in the game. And I feel like a lot of people preseason, a lot of people had Malcolm as their winner pick. So it could have happened in an alternative universe.
So I was watching our boot list video because I actually couldn't find where I saved my boot list anywhere on my computer. So I went through and I watched our boot list video to find out what my boot list was for this video. And a direct quote from Rachel is, "I feel like these big name players are gonna get pretty far." And we spent most of the post merge, I feel like, complaining about the fact that our favorite players like Malcolm and JT and Sandra got voted out pretty early. So,
yeah, I feel like we definitely were in our pre-game stuff. We were this season would we feel it. This season could turn out sort of not as good if all the big name people were voted out early, like an all-stars kind of thing. And lo and behold, that sort of happened this season. So it's sort of funny that we thought of these things prior to the actual season airing, I think.
yeah. So one last thing to say before we actually go into the actual comparison. The final three were Sarah, Brad, and Troyzan, and I had all three of them going home before the merge in 20th, 19th, and 17th places.
Really? What the hell?
Yeah, so I did not do super great when it came to that. So, sorry guys, I failed.
So we'll start with our first boot of the season. This was the Oling boot that I got 100% correct. Some other boots may have been one or two places off for both of us, but this was the boot that I was correct on. I said Sierra Easton would go home first out of Survivor Season 34 Game Changers, and she was the first person voted out.
Yep, I watched it and I was like, yay, Rachel. And then throughout the rest of the season, neither of our boot lists were completely correct ever again. And my person who I said was going to go home first is Brad Culpepper.
Oh.
As we can see, that did not happen. He came in second place, but that's okay. I'm fine. But yeah, so begins my reign of awful, awful predictions.
Why did you think Brad first?
I said that, this was assuming that he was going to be with this whole blood versus water type attitude where he was, kind of angry all the time and not all that likable. And also, a lot of people, I feel like, have switched to, wanting the alpha males out sooner rather than later. And so I think that was the reasoning I gave for Brad going first. But he changed his personality. He became a little nicer I guess. And they were so busy, like, looking at other threats like Ozzy and Sari and Malcolm and Sandra and JT to, like, give poor old Brad Culpepper a second thought.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I think that's like really interesting how like the season played out because I feel like the beginning pre-merge we saw a lot of Brad like interior designing, like talking about Monica. Then towards the end of the season, I feel like we sort of saw like a reverse back into the blood versus water Brad. So I really feel like that's interesting, your reasoning behind that. Yeah, for me, Sierra, I thought, I don't know. I was feeling the Vetus vibes, like someone who is sort of like schemy, who's smart at the game. It'd be like sort of an easy first boot because everyone knows, like, oh, Sierra's good at the game. We don't really want to work with her, so let's just vote her out. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Yep. And then so next out was Tony. And Rachel, who did you put as your 19th place finisher?
This is like so weird because like reading the actual boot list for this season, I was like, damn, I don't remember Tony going home second, but then it's like, yeah, shoot, he's been out of the game so long. But yeah, so Tony was the real second boot. I put Zeke as going home second because, I thought nobody knew Zeke on the island because his season hadn't aired yet while they were filming season 34. He's like very talkative, stuff like that. People might just be like, let's vote him out because we don't know him. So I felt like he could have went home second. But yeah, I'm glad Zeke actually made it pretty far in the game into the merge. And I think, he's had a good like story arc on the game.
Yeah. So then the person I put next was Troy. Oh, shoot. I actually said that Troyzan was going to go home first, not Brad.
Alyssa.
Well, I can't even read. It's been like 2 weeks since school let out, and I can't read anymore. But that's okay. A direct quote from me in our Bootlist podcast. Troyzan is kind of a goat. I was right. I just was wrong about how far he got as a goat. So, am I really that wrong?
Basically, that's right. Same thing, right?
20th place, 3rd place, same diff.
What's the order then of your 20 and 19th?
So like I said Troyzan goes out first and then Brad.
Okay, so reverse.
Yeah. I'm sorry that I can't read, guys.
Damn, yeah, that's funny because I put like Troyzan and Brad sort of like early merge as going home, but alas. So,
yeah.
Do we want to do third person out?
Yeah.
Yeah, so third person out was Big Brother's Caleb. I was sort of close with this one originally, so I had Aubrey as going home third because I was like, Aubrey, she'd be a big threat. Let's get her out early, stuff like that. And maybe I was a little biased towards Aubrey because I know Alyssa loves her, so I put her early in the game. So maybe next time we do a Bootlist challenge, I'll have to get rid of all my biases and do it based on like actual characteristics. But yeah. So I actually had Caleb going. For my Bootlist, I put Caleb as 5th, so I was only like 3 off for when Caleb would go home.
Yeah. So who I put as 3rd was Tony. So I was only 1 off with Tony as to where he'd go home. So that was like the best I did the entire game. So.
Wowie. Yeah. 4th, the person who went home was Malcolm.
Cries.
Our sweet boy. Still sad. I put Sari as going home 4th. Same thing, big threat. I feel like Sari not going to tribal council basically until the merge really saved her because otherwise I feel like she could have very well been a pre-merge boot, not being too great at challenges, stuff like that. So I feel like, if her team went to tribal council maybe like 2-3 times, I feel like Sari could have been in the pre-merge group as people to go home. But I'm glad she made it past the merge and was able to like see her high school son who just graduated on the island. I think that was a very sweet moment.
I think it also was good because Suri was one of the only, like, big name players that stuck around for a while. And so I personally was happy that we at least had one, like, big name player who stayed a little longer, and not just because she ended up not going to tribal, but because she actually, like, had strategy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the person I put in fourth is Sarah. And so I told y'all that the final three would be in my bottom four. So I done goofs.
Well,
But the
next
reason,
season, this is good practice.
yeah, the reason I said Sarah was going home was because I said only Tony would want to keep her around. So I guess I did not give her enough credit for her strategic gameplay. And so I did not expect her to be able to make a strong alliance. And for that, I apologize. I don't know why I'm apologizing. She's never going to watch this.
Wow. Yeah. So fifth person going home. Original is JT. So awkward. Like, I put JT in my final three as getting third place in the final three to Michaela and Andrea. JT going home with an idol after Malcolm and all the other big name like people like Tony and Sierra Easton, not Caleb, but going home after that with an idol in his pocket. I feel like JT could have made it far in the game. You know, I feel like his sort of Survivor legacy is sort of a little bit tainted maybe now, as his last two times playing with Heroes versus Villains, and then this time I feel like is probably leaving a bad taste in JT's mouth, you know, probably haunting him about all of these mistakes that he's making on Survivor. So I don't know, I would want to see JT play again, but I feel like if I were to go on 3 times, win my first season and play like a really good game, then to come on 2 more times and have people like tweet saying stuff like Steven should have won Tocantins, like stuff like that, then I feel like as JT, I wouldn't really want to come back for a 4th time.
Yeah, I feel like you just got to cut your losses at this point and be like, maybe I'm not meant to win Survivor twice. Because winning Survivor 2 times is a hard thing to do. There's a reason only one person has done it.
Yeah, I put Caleb down as going home 5th, and so I was 2 off for him. But yeah, JT, I mean, I'm not really sure if we'll see him play again.
I put down Sierra Dawn Thomas as going home 5th, and I was really wrong again. Honestly, guys, this podcast is just going to be a lot of me saying I was really wrong. So I hope that you guys have figured that out by now. I don't even remember the rationale I gave for putting her like so low, but I think it was probably along the lines of no one knows who she is, and no one, like, there wasn't really a reason to believe that she would get far in the game, I feel like. So
Survivor fan favorite, Sierra Dawn Thomas. LOL, I feel like if you just flip your boot list upside down, it would be like basically how the season turned out.
Honestly, though, I feel like my boot list backwards would actually be better than my boot list forwards.
I think it is, because you got some of the people that made it like final 7 in your top 7 going home.
Yeah.
Yeah, so next 6th person voted out of the island was actually Sandra. Sad also, this was probably the worst ever pre-merge boot out ever for all of these 6 going home. I was really bummed, and then you were sort of left with like the Goonie squad of Survivor as your finals. But alas, I put my 6th person going home was Jeff Varner. I was saying that Jeff would just not make the merge again because he hasn't made the merge in his 2 times before. And then Jeff Varner actually went home 7th. So I was 1 place off for Jeff. And I feel like being on Survivor for Jeff, playing 3 times, not making the merge 1 time, I feel like Jeff can't ever, or like will never be invited back to play Survivor for that reason, as well as like everything else that happened this season. But because he is, I mean, I feel like CBS just really liked Jeff because he was funny and good TV, but like in a viewer standpoint, as someone who has not made the merge 3 times they've played, like probably not a good Survivor player if they can't make the merge.
Yeah. Oh, Jeff. I feel like it would also just be like a political faux pas to invite Jeff back. Like a lot of people were talking about how he shouldn't have said what he did at the reunion show because it was like benefiting off of someone else's pain. And I feel like inviting him back for a fourth time would be stupid strategically, and then also like socially, I feel like people would just want to vote him out immediately.
Yeah. Who was your sixth?
Oh, who was my sixth? I said Debbie was my sixth. So
Sort of close. That's like 5 places.
5 places is not sort of close, Rachel.
That's like 15 days.
Yeah. But the reasons that I said Debbie were the reasons she was voted off, because I was like, people are just going to get annoyed with her, and that's kind of what happened. So, again, I've got these people for the right reasons, just in the wrong place.
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like we knew sort of the reason why they'd be voted off, but not like the correct order, basically. So I guess that truly shows like history does repeat itself. Like even if you want to change your game on Survivor, it is like difficult or something like that. So I think we see that a lot with this season, as a lot of the people on the jury, that's the spot they made it their first time playing the game. So maybe it goes to show like, even like no matter how hard you want to change your game, stuff like that, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think it is interesting though, because obviously like in a returning player season, the winner is not always going to win again. So I think it would be interesting to look at. Obviously, we don't have a big enough sample size for like an all returning season, but it would be interesting to see like how much someone's game actually can change.
Yeah, so moving on to 7th person voted out.
Wait, did we say who was actually 6th out?
Sandra.
Okay, yeah, we did say.
Yeah, so 7th person voted out was actually Jeff Varner, and for 7th, right before the merge, I was thinking would be Ozzy. You can't let Ozzy make it to the merge because he is so physical, winning immunity challenges or something like that. And I feel like that goes sort of along what happens. Ozzy was voted out 2 places down from this, so right after the early merge, and I feel like that's like sort of my reasoning for putting Ozzy in this 7th position back when we did it. I felt like that Ozzy would either go home like right before the merge or very early merge, because no one would want Ozzy, to make it to the end. Same with like Sari. You cannot have the like 4-time player make it to the end of the game with like 2-time players.
Yeah. So the person I put as the pre-merge boot was Sandra. So I was kind of close with her, and my reasoning was kind of like, once Sandra makes the merge, she can kind of social her way through it, and I feel like Sandra doesn't necessarily need immunities in order to be able to make her way through the merge because of her anyone but me strategy. So like as soon as anyone else's name was brought up, she'd be like, okay, I'm doing it. So
yeah, and I definitely feel like pre-merge, before Sandra was voted out, you're only one wrong with this one. And I feel like pre-merge, like we were very surprised. Like Sandra has went to like 4 tribal councils. She's been on the right side of the vote for all of these tribal councils, and her name wasn't even brought up at like any tribal councils besides the Tony tribal council, and then maybe like the one where Sandra goes home. So I was like, wow, like Sandra, even though she has a huge ass target on her back, is able to deflect that target and put it on other people. So it's like, wow, Sandra, I feel like if she made it to the merge, like you're saying, she could have potentially made it really far in the game.
yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like that was something like during that episode when Sandra was going to go home, I was like, damn, I really hope it's not Sandra, because I want to see Sandra play the game at the merge. I want to see how far she can go. I want to see her gameplay. Sort of like I would want to see Tony go far in the game. I'd want to see Malcolm go far in the game. But strategically, if you have a chance to vote like one of these kinds of players out, like you need to take that opportunity or else they'll win the game. So strategically, good move to vote out Sandra. But personally, from like a watcher, viewer standpoint, I'm like, no, I want to see her on the island.
Yeah, I think one thing I said during our original Bootlist video was I'd really like to see Sandra on the jury, just because she's never been on the jury. But we didn't even get that, so.
Yeah, that would have been really interesting. Next time, Sandra will have to play a 4th time and then get the jury. So she's had 2 wins, a pre-merge like trip, and now she has to do the Ponderosa.
Yeah, I doubt she'll come back just to fulfill our fantasy, but that's okay.
Season 40, we can hope. So
yeah.
8th person voted out. This was the first person of the merge. So Haley was the person to go home. First boot off the merge. I said Ty would go home at the merge. I feel like Ty would have, you know, maybe been like annoying to his tribe mates. And I think we sort of see this towards the end with the whole Brad versus Ty thing, how he sort of broke those bonds with people. So I feel like people wouldn't want to work with him. So he'd be voted out early merge.
Yeah. I said that Sierra Easton was going to be the first merge boot. So I feel like the reason I said that was because I assumed that it would be like strategic threats would be the ones to go home when it came to merge time, because I had a lot of like the alpha male types going before the merge, I think. So it was like strategic threat goes home. And I also said, I think, that I didn't think Sierra was going to make a super strong alliance. And that's kind of what happened to Haley, where she didn't have a super strong alliance and she was kind of a strategic threat. So.
Yeah, sort of same reasoning, wrong girl.
Meh.
Yeah, so 9th person voted out, 2nd person on the jury. Ozzy was the 2nd person to go. I put Sandra in this spot. Like I just said about Sandra, I felt like Sandra, if she made it to the merge, people would want to vote her out early merge, because if Sandra made it super, super far in the game, she would have won the game, I feel like. So strategically, making her go home late, like before the pre-merge or very early merge, like I was predicting, would have been the smart thing to do to let other people win the game. Still really sad. I really thought Sandra and Tony would have an alliance, and that's why I put Sandra and Tony so far down on my list of like making it further in the game. But alas, whenever we say something, it never happens. So Sandra is 9th.
I said that Caleb would be 9th place. And again, I got like the right archetype, but not the right person. So I was like, Caleb's a challenge beast, so he's going to go home. So Ozzy was a challenge beast who went home. Are names really that important in Survivor? So really, I was right again. Right?
Keep telling yourself this. Yeah. So 10th person, Debbie was the one to go home. Yeah, was the one to go home in the real game. I had Debbie going home 2 votes after this, so sort of similar. For the 10th person going home, I actually put down Sarah. I felt like Sarah would have maybe had an alliance with Sandra and Tony, who Sandra would have just gotten voted out, and then Tony would still be in the game. And then they'd be like, oh, we don't need Sarah anymore. Let's vote her out. So that's not really what we saw, because we saw Sandra and Tony go home early and Sarah really come into her own on the game. So, yeah, wrong, I guess.
I said that Zeke was going to go home, which wasn't actually that far off since he's the person who went home next in like reality. And really, I can't remember what my idea behind this was. I think it was something along the lines of he always tries to game really big. and that would get him sent home. That was what got him sent home the next time. So
yeah, I feel like him versus Andrea started too early, maybe. Same with like him versus David from Millennials versus Gen X, which sort of led to his downfall. I feel like I put Zeke, going home second on my boot list because, no one knew him and he would try to start gaming too early.
yeah, I feel like if he could like find his chill, then he would do better. Like that sounds like super kind of meh. Not in like in a like, oh my god, he needs to chill way, but in a like, if you can take a deep breath, you would probably get further in this game.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know if Zeke would play the game again. I feel like Zeke's like gameplay, like we've seen all we can from Zeke. I feel like I wouldn't really want to see him play again. I feel like out of everyone on this season, I feel like not that many people from the season we would see play again. I feel like a lot of these people, their storylines have pretty much finished. Like Debbie probably shouldn't play again. Like no one wants to see her. And I feel like I think like Sarah could be invited back for the all winter season. I feel like we probably won't see like Brad Troyzan play again. I feel like we'd see Sari play again, maybe Ozzy and Sandra and Tony and Malcolm for like a like legend season or something like that. But like all the other big names, I don't think Sierra Easton would play again. JT probably not. Like Aubrey, probably not. Michaela and Andrea. Like Andrea, I think her playing a fourth time, like I couldn't see it happening.
I feel like the thing is with a lot of these players, I could see them playing again in like the far, far, far future. But like if they were to do another returnee season like next season, which isn't going to happen, obviously, but if they were to do that, I wouldn't want to see them play again. And like one of the things we talked about was that Zeke and Michaela both repeated the mistakes from their previous game and how we'd like to see them play again, like after they had time to like watch their seasons back and figure out what they had done wrong and like grow up as people as well as Survivor players. So
yeah, I definitely feel like playing back to back, especially when the season hasn't aired yet, you don't really have that time to reflect, on the season or see sort of like the viewers and fans' reactions to your gameplay the season and everything like that. So then you can't really learn from your mistakes. And I feel like when we see people play back to back, sort of like Malcolm did with his season, sort of like how what's his face? Russell Hantz did with his seasons in 19.
Amanda did the same thing with her seasons when she did 15 and 16.
Yeah, like you go out in like a similar or like the same-ish kind of spot, basically.
Yeah. Or like Amanda made it to the end twice, but she lost twice because like she didn't bring the right person with her or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, next is the 11th person going home. The 11th person that actually went home was Zeke. I put Troyzan in this spot. I feel like, same thing like Alyssa said at the beginning of the podcast that I didn't really see Troyzan winning the game. I guess like I feel like he could have went like final three like we actually saw happen as a GOAT. Sorry, like all the Troyzan lovers, LOL. But I don't know. I don't really like. It's just meh for me. I feel like Troyzan going home in 11th or making it to final three, it doesn't really change Troyzan or anything like that because I don't know. We didn't really see much from him in the game.
Yeah, the only time we really saw anything about Troyzan in the game was when he found that idol. And even then, that wasn't really like about Troyzan. It was about the idol.
Yeah, so I'm just like sort of there's nothing really much to say, I feel like.
Yeah. I put Jeff as my 11th out. And I did that mostly because I pitied him and I was like, I should put him in a spot where he makes the merge. And that was literally my entire reasoning. So.
Shoot, yeah, I feel like people I talk to also, they're like, oh, I just put Jeff like at the merge because I really wanted to see him make the merge. You know, I feel bad for him, but I was like, nay, not today. He's going home pre-merge. Like, really bummer for him, but like, sucks to suck.
Wow.
So, 12th going home in actuality was Sierra Dawn Thomas. I put 12th as Debbie, so I was too wrong for this one. Same, I don't really know. Debbie going home 10th or 12th, I feel like it just depended on her alliances and stuff in the game. I feel like, you know, I was sort of close in the sort of range she would be voted out, but it's definitely like your alliances, who you're close with in the game, that determines what actual place you are. So I feel like for this, you know, it makes sense for Debbie to go home early merge.
Yeah. I put Ozzy as going home in this position because I think what I said in our Bootlist thing was I thought that he was going to make the merge and then go on an immunity run. That didn't happen. But yeah, again, one of those people who got voted out because of their like physical threateningness. So yeah.
Yeah, so 13th person going home was Andrea. Alyssa and I both had Andrea as our winner pick, so we're sort of a little off with this one. For 13th going home, I put Brad Culpepper down. I felt like Brad, as like a strong dude, they wouldn't really take him further because I felt like Brad could have won more immunities, but it's like which we definitely saw happen after like this point when Brad went on the immunity run to win 5 individual immunities. So I feel like if the people voted out Brad earlier, you know, other people could have won individual immunities. And this was the sort of reasoning why I put him going home 13th, because I felt like people would have recognized maybe, you know, like the ex-NFL football player would be good at challenges, and you wouldn't want to like keep bringing him along.
Yeah, I didn't really get that with Brad, or why they didn't vote out Brad, because like they had a lot of things where they were like, oh, Sierra is like the brains of the operation, but it's like you still need Braun to get stuff done. So I feel like they should have like done a 1-2 punch where they got out Sierra and then Brad, and then that entire alliance would be like totally screwed.
Troyzan. Yeah, I feel that. I feel like in Survivor, a lot of times we see the majority alliance per se vote out members of the minority alliance, but then they leave like 1 or 2 left in the game, and then these sort of become like the underdogs that are able to make it a lot further in the game than the then the rest of their alliance, because it's like you don't want to straight pagong them, because once the numbers get down to like lesser, then you can use those people to vote out people in your majority alliance, which also like you definitely want to think about who you're leaving in that minority to like help you move further in the game, because leaving someone like Brad, you know, it could have turned out really bad for certain people who could like needed to win immunity but could never because Brad was there.
I think it was really interesting because like they talked a lot about like the deck getting shuffled or whatever, and like I'm fine with things the way they are, and he ended up getting to 3rd place because of it, but it's also like he only got 3rd because no one voted for him because he never actually made any moves in the game. And so it's like, if you're going to like be content with your alliance and just pick off all the minority members, you need to find a way to make that like actually a good strategic argument, so that like when it comes to like explaining yourself at tribal, you're not just like, oh, I got rid of everyone who wasn't in my alliance and then I got rid of my alliance. Because that's not a good like narrative.
Yeah. So 14th person going home was Michaela. I put Haley as a 14th person going home. I really thought, you know, Haley or Sierra, or I guess Sarah was the person would like become like a Kelly Wentworth-esque kind of player, where we sort of see, they play the first time, don't make it too far in the game, and then they sort of like blossom their second time playing. So I had Haley going, middle merge area, and I feel like, Haley was always on the wrong side of the numbers. I feel like going into the season called Game Changers was sort of detrimental to Haley's gameplay because nobody really saw her as a game changer, and so therefore no one really wanted to work with her out on the island. But I feel like if Haley waited maybe or like came back for a season that wasn't so game changer then I feel like she could have went like pretty far in the game. So yeah, with that, Michaela was the one to go home during this time, and I still don't really understand all the hype about Michaela. Preseason, Michaela was always put into the category with the big name people like a Sari and Tony and Sandra, and like she didn't even make final 3, so I'm not really sure like why producers love her so much.
I feel like it's kind of like a recency bias type thing. You also had Michaela in like your top 3 though, didn't you?
Yeah, I had her finishing second.
Yeah. So I feel like it's a combination of recency bias and like even if she's not a good player, she's good TV. And so I feel like the line between good player and good TV has become like more and more blurred as Survivor gets like older. And like that's fine because we watch Survivor both for the strategy and for the entertainment value. But it's like insisting that someone is like a good player when they're actually good TV or vice versa, that they're good TV when they're really just a good player is problematic. And I feel like that can inspire some stuff. I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, definitely. I feel that like a lot of reality TV shows are becoming more and more like sort of fake, I feel like, because they're like casting or they're putting people in the show that just cause drama.
Yeah, and it's like drama does not necessarily mean better. But yeah. For this position, I had Ty going home, and I think I basically said like what happened to him later in the game where he's charming, but he also like breaks his alliances a lot, and that's not a good thing. So you don't want to bring him with you because you can never trust him to like stay with what he says he'll do.
Yeah. So you just said Malcolm for 14th. For 15th, I put Malcolm going home. Sari was the actual one to go home. I think similar reasoning, Malcolm's good at the game. He's smart. He's strategic. You can't let him go to the final 5 or 6 like finale because like we saw, I feel like Malcolm could have won the game his first time playing, but he was voted out right before final 3. So I think with this, I had like the alliance, like with his people that he actually did end up aligning with. So like Tony, JT, all these people making it into the final 5. So I feel like reasoning behind it was sound. The people that who he ended up playing the game with, would have like voted him out at this time. And like I feel like he could have made it this far if he didn't get screwed over at the 4th tribal council.
Yeah. I still am really upset that like Malcolm got voted out when he did, and like people are like, oh, that's the game, but it's like, no, that's not the game. That was a crazy twist that like didn't happen. And then of course JT got himself off the Christmas card list. But yeah. I had Michaela going home in this position. So
nice.
I was only 1 off with her. So
yeah, I definitely feel like, yes, people are like, oh, it's the game, but like it's not the game when people who aren't even technically on your tribe vote you out, something like that. So I mean, sucks. I'm still sad.
yeah. And I feel like that's one of the reasons like I would totally be down for like Malcolm coming back for a 4th time on Survivor, because it's like he didn't get voted out by any fault of his own. He got voted out because JT couldn't keep his mouth shut.
Yeah, and I feel like that's sort of same like, so Sari was the one to go home in this spot. I feel like Sari going home, being voted out or whatever, idled out, however you want to say it, leaving the game with no votes cast against her, I feel like sort of leaves it on a high note maybe, because it's like, oh, she was voted out for no reason on her own, like we can bring her back. But then it's also like shitty for Suri, like Suri could have won the game. A lot of people were rooting for her. If she wasn't idled out, she could have made it really far, and I feel like that's something that you're sort of like stuck living with for like a while.
Yeah. I think like part of the reason why this season was kind of frustrating was because like we're fine with our favorite players getting voted out if they actually get voted out for like strategic reasons and not just because, you know, because of like a twist in the game or because of a ton of idols.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I feel like it's just, I don't even know how to put it into words basically, but like same thing. Like seeing someone go home for some fault or something not like they're doing, like sure, like go home. But seeing people taken out of the game like too early, or yeah, too early, because I think Suri could have made it further. I think Malcolm could have made it further. Like then it's a little bit like FML problematic. Like if Sierra Dawn Thomas actually went home at the tribal council where Malcolm went home, then Alyssa, your Bootlist would have been correct.
Yeah, and it would have been great. But yeah. I don't think I'll ever stop being bitter about this season, TBH, but that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like honestly towards the end, it sort of became like you sort of knew who was going to win the game, I feel like. And now like after the season aired, some of my friends are like, "Oh, like how was the season?" I'm like, "Oh, like I forgot that even happened because it's not really like memorable." I feel like they're like, "Oh, how's the finale?" I was like, you know, it happened. Like I'm not going to go talk to you about the finale because it wasn't really like something odd, like jaw dropping happened. I might be like, "Oh, Suri got voted out," but like no one else really like made an impact, I feel like, to be worthy of talking about it like years after. Like I feel like the whole Kelly Wentworth Jeremy idol play is something you talk about years after the fact as like a crazy tribal council. I feel like when Suri was voted out, you talk about it as a crazy tribal council. For final tribal council, I feel like this season there wasn't really anything of super great significance that like you would be like, OMG, I need to talk about this next year.
Yeah. Mm. It's like we talked about it, but like I feel like pretty much from the merge it was obvious that Sarah was going to win. So it wasn't anything game changing, so to speak.
Yeah, I definitely feel like you know how like certain big moves really make a season memorable or something like that. I feel like this season, though it did have like some big moves, you know, it had some crazy like tribals or vote outs. I feel like these vote outs sort of leave a bad taste in your mouth. Like I don't want to talk about Malcolm going home being voted out by not even his tribe. I don't want to talk about JT not using his idol and being voted out. Like I don't want to talk about Tony and Sandra going home pre-merge. So it's sort of like all these things, like they're memorable per se, but not the good kind of memorable.
Yeah. It's the kind of memorable where you sit your friend down and you tell them about Survivor and you say, "We don't talk about the Malcolm incident," or "We don't talk about the Suri incident." So, yeah.
Shoot, yeah. On this tangent, we still have like 5 things left.
Whoops.
16 person going home. Aubrey was the one to go home. I put Tony going home 5th from, so yeah, 2 away from final 3. You know, you can't let Tony get to the final 3 because he is a one-time winner, awesome at the game. Like that's why he would have went home right then, like right after Malcolm. For Aubrey, I'm still a little confused, I guess, as to why she was given such a dud edit and then she didn't even go home in the Suri position. I feel like if Aubrey went home at the tribal where no votes were cast against the person that went home, then I feel like yeah, Aubrey gets the dud edit. That makes sense because producers don't want fan favorites going home because of luck or chance, which is total bullshit, but whatever. So I just like Aubrey was basically invisible this season. So I'm like, huh.
Yeah, I was really confused by that too, but meh. I had Malcolm going home in this position, and since we've already ranted a healthy amount about that, I think I can just leave it at that.
Yeah. So 17th person to go home was Ty. I put Sierra Dawn Thomas. So yeah, I think similar. I feel like Sierra would have been maybe goaded towards the end and then voted out right before final tribal council, which I'm glad like didn't really happen. I'm glad we saw Sierra like play the game and try to make big moves and then was like voted out because she was a threat. So I'm glad that she was able to like do that because I feel like Sierra and Haley were probably two of the people before this season that were labeled as like people who shouldn't be on Game Changers, stuff like that. So I feel like good like for Sierra that she was sort of able to get rid of that stereotype as non-deserving of being on this season.
Yeah, I feel like she wasn't a game changer prior to this season, but like after this season, I wouldn't be upset, I guess, if someone called her a game changer. So.
Yeah, who was your person?
Oh, right. I keep forgetting to say who it was. I put Malcolm. That's what I said. Malcolm.
Okay, yeah, no reasoning.
We've already like talked a lot about like why Malcolm would go home or not go home, and I feel like I can't talk about it anymore without just ranting more. So I'm just gonna say Malcolm. Full stop.
Okay.
I love that guy.
Yeah, so final three, we have Troyzan, Brad, and then Sarah going home or winning. Shit. So Sarah wins, Brad second place, Troyzan third place. I put Andrea first place, Michaela second place, JT third place. Yeah, I think Andrea could have maybe won the game if she made it to final tribal council. I feel like Andrea was maybe rubbing people the wrong way on the island. She sort of became, I don't know, like it was hard to watch her this season, I feel like, but I feel like maybe after her people started getting voted out, she sort of became an underdog. But I definitely feel like Andrea versus Zeke happened too soon, so it led to both of their demises again. Michaela, second place, was sort of based off the fact that she got so much preseason hype, which I sort of see now. It's like you're what you were saying, Alyssa, with the recency bias. So gotta fix that for our next Bootlist challenge. JT, I thought JT was going to be the person who fit into the game changer category as like big name people who would be making it the furthest. Obviously that we did not see that happen, JT. High hopes for JT to fix his mistakes coming off of Heroes versus Villains, but alas, sucks.
Yeah. So fourth place. Did I say fourth place? I had Malcolm in fifth place and Haley in fourth place. I don't even know what I'm doing with my life anymore. I like can't focus for longer than 5 minutes because I've been out of school. But I had Andrea in first place, and you kind of went over the reasons like why that wouldn't actually happen and why I thought it would happen. And then I will admit that my second place was Aubrey, and I totally said that just because I love Aubrey and I'm really blind when it comes to Aubrey. And like I feel like she did have like the strategic chops, but she just keeps on her allies keep voting out, getting voted out. And like I feel like that sucks even more than getting voted out yourself. Just because at least when you're voted out, you like get to go on these fancy trips or you get to go to Ponderosa and you like get to have a good time. But like when your allies get voted out, you have to like scramble and like find some place new to like hold on to, and that just seems exhausting.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like Aubrey had a lot of those like sort of like tweets that we've talked about, like, oh, of course, once I align with this person, they have to get voted out. So maybe Aubrey's like the death wish. Align with her and you'll get voted out.
So pro tip, don't align with Aubrey if you go on Survivor.
Yep. So basically, did you have a third place?
Oh yeah, my third place was Sari. And I made this boot list under the assumption that there was going to be a final two. And I honestly don't know why I made that assumption, but I did. And basically I said neither of those people, neither Andrea nor Aubrey would want to go to the final three with Sari. And so basically just that like she basically just that she would get voted out because she was a huge threat and everyone would want her to win. So
yeah. So this rounds out our boot list comparison versus the actual boot list of Survivor Season 34 and the guest boot list that we did pre-Survivor Season 34. So Alyssa and I have a lot of cool things planned. I feel like if you have any Survivor-related challenges videos that you want to see us do in person, leave a comment down below. If you have any other Survivor-related videos you want to see in general, we have a long-ass hiatus until September.
And so one of the videos you're probably going to be seeing in the near future is we did a first impressions boot list, myself and a guest star. Rachel wasn't there for it. But we did a first impressions boot list where people guessed who would win based solely on their appearances. And so we're going to be doing a revisiting of the guest boot list, or of the first impressions boot list, kind of like this one, where we say how close it was, and then talk a little bit about like what a Survivor player is supposed to look like and why that might be wrong. So
that sounds interesting.
Yeah, stay tuned for that. It'll probably be coming not this Friday, but a week from Friday.
Yeah, so we will see you guys next time.
Bye.